Suppose you get two invitations to two Christmas parties happening on the same time. Which one would you choose? One is hosted by your former co-worker who got fired a few months ago and had to move in with his parents in their trailer park. The other Christmas party is hosted by your old high school buddy who became a physician, an MD, and just moved back in town, having purchased a fabulous mansion. Which of these two competing Christmas parties would you go to? I know what you're thinking. As much as I hate to admit it myself, as much as it shames me to say I would go to the one hosted by my newly minted physician friend, rather than going to a trailer park event. And it's not only about better selection of food and drinks. It's about perhaps cleanliness, good smells or not so good smells, and a general sense of comfort of being in the party of my MD high school buddy. As a matter of fact, most of us, even though we are not the 1% of the population, I don't know how many of us are middle class, probably not too many, but yet we feel uncomfortable in the midst of poverty, especially true, real, abject poverty. We are out of our comfort zones. And so, I imagine that given a choice, most of us would choose the door number 2. Thank God, and pun is intended, God, unlike us, is quite comfortable finding God's self in the midst of poverty. God is perfectly fine sitting on a dirty futon in a trailer park. God is okay eating a cheap Spam sandwich on a previously used paper plate. Even there is a cockroach running around. Unlike us, I think actually God prefers the company of those who don't know if there is enough food in the fridge to last them until the next payday, to those who throw away leftovers from a fancy restaurant 3 days ago. God prefers the company of the poor. In today's first reading, Prophet Isaiah in the 61st chapter of the book says that God's anointed one will be sent to proclaim glad tidings. And here we usually stop. Hey, glad tidings. But it continues, glad tidings to the poor and to heal the brokenhearted, to announce the year of grace of the Lord. And to make sure that you and I know who that anointed is, anointed in Hebrew means Messiah, in Greek, Christ, Luke, in his gospel, has Jesus read this very chapter of Isaiah as Jesus' first words publicly spoken. If you page to the Gospel of Luke, Jesus says nothing until chapter 4, when he comes to a synagogue in his hometown Nazareth, opens the scroll of Isaiah and finds Isaiah 61, our first reading today. And for the first time, Jesus opens his mouth in the Gospel of Luke saying, God has anointed me to proclaim glad tidings to the poor. Not to the middle class, not to the 1% of the population, but to the poor. Isaiah 61 and Luke 4 leave no room for doubt for us to understand who is the addressee of the glad tidings, or who is the partner of God's engagement in our world. It is the poor. It is those with broken hearts and with broken lives, seemingly beyond repair. It is those who do not have extra money saved for a new car next year. It is those who can't afford a trip to Europe or even to North Texas. This is God's preferred company, to whom God's anointed one brings glad tidings. You see, in Christmas carols, in all languages, we sing, or will sing from next Sunday on, about the glad tidings. So many Christmas carols have that word in them, glad tidings. But according to Isaiah and according to Luke 4, glad tidings is not about this warm, fuzzy feeling in your heart when you sit around Christmas tree. It's not about this sterile image of baby Jesus with pink cheeks giving a blessing to a newly shampooed baby lamb. Glad tidings is about God preferring to be born on Christmas night in a stable full of stench and cockroaches and dirty animals, rather than being born in a 5-star hotel. These are the glad tidings we are singing about every Christmas. God's preferred company are the poor. In 1968, the general boss, the general supervisor, the general superior of the Jesuit order. Have you heard of Jesuits? These are the Catholic Church U.S. Marines. In 1968, the Brigadier General of the Jesuits, his name was Padre Arrupe. Father Arrupe wrote a message to the members of the Jesuit order in which he wrote for the first time about God's preferential option for the poor. And that expression, the preferential option for the poor, has entered theological language for decades to come. Catholic social teaching, Catholic moral theology today cannot exist without saying without discussing the preferential option for the poor. And as many things began with the Jesuits in 1968. This expression, the preferential option for the poor, has revolutionized theology. The preferential option for the poor has shamed Christians all over the world because we have realized that the people God prefers are exactly the people we avoid. The preferential option for the poor has thrown buckets of cold water on pious people everywhere who are perfectly comfortable in marble churches and sanctuaries, but are out of their comfort zone in a homeless shelter. The preferential option for the poor has rained on the parade of many good and charismatic preachers and pastors who seek new members among the people with fake wallets, not among those who are waiting in line to the unemployment office. The preferential option for the poor is a challenge, but also it is an invitation for you and for me to step out of our comfort zones, to be courageous enough and to find God where God prefers to be and where God is, rather than where we would like God to be. Amen.
Amen.